So this is not even one of those like what ifs, what would happen if the shamans came in, but this is actually confirmed night elven shamans out in Dragonflight that you can see right now, and they are not exactly the good guys. At least they're not on the side of Elune or Tyrande, and we are fighting them. However, when we combined this very sudden introduction of night elven shamans and the fact that these night elves are survivors of Teldrassil and that Blizzard confirmed that they will loosen race class restrictions in an interview, what will this mean for the playable ones? Are they coming as soon as Dragonflight itself? Maybe in a first or second patch? How will all this work out, and what is all this new information? As you may already be aware, and this is quite old news at this point, Blizzard said that they plan to eventually remove all the race class restrictions and pretty much make every class playable for essentially any race. They already started this process by releasing new combinations directly in Dragonflight, some more ridiculous than others such as Thor and Rogues. However, they said that not much is stopping them from doing this. They don't plan to do it overnight, but to slowly start introducing combo after combo. 8 new ones are coming as soon as the expansion is out, but they could start adding new ones in every patch in the new expansion without a doubt, and the next expansion we could get an entirely new batch. Now, they are aware that some are really just ridiculous, such as undead druids or orc paladins, and they said for the more drastic ones, they plan to start setting up the ground and slowly introducing new lore, which could mean over the course of multiple expansions. And I think that is exactly what is going on with the Night Elven Shamans, as they might just be the first ones on this list to actually be added. As I mentioned in the previous video, the Night Elves have always been connected to nature, but they have been mainly druids and they have never really been shamans. This is correct in a way. Originally they were dark trolls that later changed and evolved into Night Elves and mainly focused on arcane magic and Well of Eternity together with some druidism. However, after the catastrophe was caused by Queen Ashara, the Burning Legion invasion, in that thing where the planet was split in half in the event known as the Sundering, the Night Elves decided to completely shun magic and to almost entirely focus on druidism and the worship of Elune. This is evident by the fact that they literally exiled the Highborn that were proponents of using arcane magic, and how later the High Elves were created on a completely different continent. Now, keep in mind, when it comes to magic, differences between classes, this line has always been and is really blurry, so it is really hard to give definite answers or facts in this matter. Druidism and shamanism are kinda similar, although there has always been a pretty big distinction between the two. Druids focus on nature, while the shamans focus on the elements. These are fundamentally different things, as elementals are possibly the most ancient beings to any planet that we know of and are 100% native. Shamans work with these elementals, and while they do generally seem like the good guys, they keep the balance, this doesn't necessarily have to be the case, as elementals can be benevolent, but they can also not be so. This is a major difference from planet to planet, as some planets have more aggressive elementals, such as Azeroth, for example. This is generally not the case with Druidism, where nature is, in general terms, more benevolent. Druidism is also as ancient as the planet itself, but who really knows at this point, as the Druids seem to be involved with Elune, Ardenbuild, Gemeral Dream, the Winter Queen, this entire cycle, and these could definitely be ancient invaders of native planets, similar to the Titans, so they may not be so native after all. Now, this brings us to the Dragonflight and this new information that we have directly from the beta, and keep in mind, there are some spoilers from this point forward in regards to questlines and new expansion and things that actually happen. So, as you're aware, the Proto-Dragons were the original dragons, and as we have just learned, they might have been the first users of elemental magic, the probably most ancient form of magic on Azeroth. As you may also be aware, arcane is generally related to Titans, fountains of power are usually related to the World Soul, such as the Well of Eternity, which is literally the blood of Azeroth, but the use of it may not be as ancient as elemental magic, meaning the Titans could have brought arcane. Now, as we have seen in Dragonflight, a lot of the original dragons thought the Titans had cursed them, tainted them, and see them as invaders as opposed to the saviors, the narrative that is usually given to us, and we will be fighting these dragons and their followers called the Primalists. These guys see the dragon aspects as traitors and not the protectors of Azeroth that we see them as. We don't really know what their goal is now, but it is almost certain that they will be a really big threat, or at least an introduction to a really big threat that will happen. This is essentially the premise of the new expansion, where the threats will unfold as we go further and further. Now, across the Dragon Isles, we run into Night Elven Shamans that are obviously using elemental magic and are aligned with these primalists. One of the most important ones comes around in the Ohn'ahran Plains, which is the home to the Green Dragonflight, and even more interestingly, she has the Teldrassil burn mark on her face. Like, it is literally called, in the customization options when you create a Night Elf, it is called Teldrassil, which obviously indicates that she survived the recent war and the burning of the World Tree. This, furthermore, indicates that this Night Elf was more than likely a really recent convert from something else into a shaman, and she is 100% working against Tyrande and the Green Dragonflight. Like, this is not up to speculation, it is literally a fact. Spoiler alert, she literally creates a storm to destroy a green dragon barrier that protects a portal into the actual Emerald Dream that is in the zone. She also says things like, we will get a hold over the Emerald Dream one way or the other, no one will spoil our plans, etc, etc. So this leads us into a really interesting storyline and possible future implications. Night Elves have a tradition of arcane, titan magic, druidism, the worship of Elune, but they do not have a tradition of shamanism, meaning that something recently changed, and recently as in possibly the past few years, as the judgment that Tyrande did to Sylvanas happened approximately 3 years before the start of Dragonflight. It is entirely possible that a faction of Night Elves lost faith in Tyrande and the mercy she had recently shown, and just got disillusioned by Elune and her being essentially useless, so they decided to turn to primal elemental magic and might think that this is the way to go. Who even cares about Elune anymore? Now, this is the new storyline, but how does this actually lead us to playable Night Elven Shamans, the ones that, like, we can actually get a hold over? Well, these guys are obviously not going to be playable as we are fighting against them, but I totally see a scenario where we learn about this order, eventually they realize that their need for revenge had taken them too far, similar to Tyrande, and Tyrande might now want to take them back in as she did a similar thing. Using elemental magic is not exactly a bad thing. I mean, we have shamans everywhere. It's just that these primalists are not exactly the good guys. They more than likely want to get a hold over the world and dominate others. The proto-dragons are not exactly subtle about giving us that idea. Now, this order of Night Elven Shamans could possibly see the error of their ways, and they could return back to the Alliance, but they can bring their newfound powers to us and can create a new tradition for the Night Elves. This would be very similar to how the Void was brought to the Horde to be used as a force for good after Legion, despite us fighting against the Void. So my point is that after we learn about this mysterious order and after this entire storyline is over, we could get the introduction of playable Night Elven Shamans, which might be as soon as a certain patch in Dragonflight, maybe 10.1, 10.2. With the fact that we have a portal into the Emerald Dream, this could happen really quickly and could be a significant part of the story. Realistically, this is completely consistent with the recent Blizzard interviews and the current lore. They literally promised that they plan to start creating new lore to set up the ground for additional race class combos to be introduced, which means that this might just be the first one on this list. Thank you for watching. Check out what would Elune look like if it came back to the ground by clicking on the screen, and check out Doronsmovies Academy for videos on real world history. See you next time.